Princess Fenris defiantly hurled her plasma saber at the wailing captives, the blade disintegrating their shackles as she roared, "Run, humans! You're free now!" Incensed by her brazen defiance, Emperor Zorlax banished his once-favored daughter to the primitive world called Earth. Fenris' ship crashed in the rubble of fallen New York skyscrapers, quickly surrounded by wary human rebels, led by hardened war veteran Sergeant Jeffrey Sullivan. The princess unleashed a maelstrom of destruction against a platoon of pursuing Barzan troopers, plasma blasts and monomolecular blades scything through the shocked soldiers as a demonstration of her lethal power. Sullivan realized this fearsome alien warrior could be the key to humanity's survival against the relentless Barzan onslaught. In the dank confines of the rebel bunker, Fenris divulged the Galactic Council's genocidal agenda to eradicate mankind before they could rise to challenge the Barzan's iron grip on the cosmos. She vowed to arm and train Sullivan's rebels with the advanced weapons and tactics of her people, forging an unlikely alliance between the spurned princess and the desperate human defenders. As stories spread of the alien royal fighting for Earth, Fenris became a living symbol of resistance, a unifying beacon of hope for the remnants of humanity. The Barzan traitor and the battle-scarred sergeant stood together, an indomitable force ready to make a final stand against the tyrannical Star Empire. Two soldiers from different worlds, bound by the warrior's creed, would lead the charge to decide the fate of Earth and the galaxy itself. The Barzan Command Center's alarms blared as Princess Fenris and Major Jack Reeves fought their way through squads of armored troopers. Reeves blasted oncoming soldiers with his plasma rifle, the searing bolts melting through their ceramic plating. Fenris danced among the enemy ranks, her monomolecular blade flashing in a deadly silver blur, alien limbs and weapons clattering to the blood-slicked floor. They reached the communications hub, a circular room dominated by pulsing holoscreen displays and gleaming control consoles. Fenris jacked her gauntlet into the system, her implanted quantum processor interfacing with the Barzan network. Data streamed across her HUD visor. "Oh no," she breathed, ice flooding her veins. "It's worse than we thought." Reeves gunned down the last twitching trooper and hurried to her side. "What is it? What did you find?" The princess turned to him, her face ashen. "The Oblivion's hammer, the planet killer weapon. It's already on its way. The Galactic Council has doomed your world." Reeves gripped her armored shoulder. "Like hell they have. We're not finished yet. You said we could hijack their comms, coordinate a global resistance. Let's do it." Fenris nodded shakily, stealing her grit. Her fingers flew over the console, the system bending to her will. She isolated Earth's master communication array, an orbital platform the Barzans used to choreograph their planetary occupation. The quantum encryption was formidable, but her people had built it. She knew its secrets. "I'm in," she reported, routing the system controls to her suit's transmitter. "Let's move. When we get back to base, I can—" A thunderous boom shook the command center, consoles sparking and screens flickering. The ceiling caved in with a shriek of rending metal. Fenris shoved Reeves aside as a massive crimson shape dropped through the torn roof, hydraulic actuators hissing as it rose to its full height. It was a Barzan war mech, 5 meters of blood-red armor and whirring plasma cannons. A sneering alien face leered at them from the cockpit, Colonel Gorax, her father's chief enforcer. "Hello, little princess," Gorax growled through the mech's speakers, cannons thrumming as they swiveled to target Fenris and Reeves. "Your father sends his regards, and his sentence, death for the traitorous runt who would betray her own kind to save this wretched planet." Fenris ignited her plasma saber, the azure blade humming to life. She felt Reeves at her back, rifle aimed steady at the towering mech. A calm clarity descended over her, the certainty of purpose. She was a daughter of the Barzan Empire no longer. She was a warrior of Earth now, a champion of humanity, and she would fight for her adopted people until her dying breath. "You want Earth?" Fenris snarled, crouching to spring at the war machine. "You'll have to go through me first." Colonel Gorax's laughter boomed from the speakers. The mech's arms split apart, reconfiguring into a dripping array of pulse cannons and micro-missile batteries. The Barzan commander leveled his new arsenal at the duo. With pleasure, traitor. Fenris and Reeves tensed as the War-Mech's weapons cycled up to unleash a storm of plasma and explosives that would vaporize them both. The command center erupted with blinding fire and deafening thunder, and the fate of Earth teetered on the edge of a blade. The War-Mech's weapons unleashed a hellish barrage, but Fenris and Reeves were already in motion. They dove behind a fallen support beam as superheated plasma scorched the air around them. Chunks of molten metal rained down, sizzling against their armor. Fenris's mind raced. They needed to neutralize Gorax and escape with the vital intelligence she'd uncovered. She locked eyes with Reeves and nodded towards a maintenance hatch in the floor. He understood immediately. As one, they sprang from cover. Fenris ignited her plasma saber, the azure blade deflecting a volley of micro-missiles. Reeves laid down suppressing fire, his rifle spitting streams of energy bolts that forced Gorax to raise the mech's massive arms in a defensive stance. Fenris capitalized on the distraction, leaping onto the War-Mech's leg and scaling its crimson hull with inhuman agility. She plunged her saber into a weak point in the armor, severing hydraulic lines. Gorax howled in rage as the mech's right leg seized up. Off balance, the war machine toppled. Fenris somersaulted clear as it crashed to the ground. She and Reeves sprinted for the hatch, diving through just as Gorax brought his remaining weapons to bear. They tumbled down a maintenance shaft, landing in a lower level of the Barzan compound. Alarms blared, and the thunder of approaching footsteps echoed through the corridors. "We need to rendezvous with Sullivan," Reeves growled, checking his rifle's power cell. "This intel changes everything." Fenris nodded grimly. "Agreed. But first, we fight our way out." They battled through waves of Barzan soldiers, a blur of plasma fire and flashing blades. Fenris's combat implants worked in overdrive, calculating trajectories and identifying threats faster than human reflexes could process. Reeves moved with the precision of a veteran Special Forces operator, every shot finding its mark. They reached the extraction point, a Barzan shuttle pad now swarming with enemy reinforcements. A familiar voice crackled over their comms. "Reeves! Princess! Get your asses to the southeast corner. You've got about 30 seconds before this whole place goes up." It was Sullivan, right on time. Fenris and Reeves sprinted across the landing pad, dodging plasma bolts and leaping over barricades. A stolen Barzan dropship rose into view, Sullivan at the controls. The cargo bay opened, revealing a team of human resistance fighters providing covering fire. They dove into the ship just as Sullivan punched the throttle. The dropship rocketed away from the compound. Moments later, a series of explosions tore through the Barzan stronghold, obscuring the sky with debris and smoke. Back at the rebel base, Fenris uploaded the captured Barzan intelligence to their systems. Sullivan's face grew grave as he absorbed the implications. "The Oblivion's hammer," he muttered. "Christ, we always knew they had planet killers, but to actually use one..." Reeves pounded his fist on the holotable. "We can't let that happen. There has to be a way to stop it." Fenris' eyes blazed with perseverance. "There is, but we'll need to hit them where it hurts." She brought up a holographic display of a heavily fortified Barzan installation. "This is their quantum entanglement communication array. If we can seize control of it, we can coordinate a global resistance and warn the entire planet about what's coming." Sullivan studied the schematics, his tactical mind already formulating a plan. "It's a long shot, but it might be our only chance. We'll need our best for this one." He looked at Fenris and Reeves. "You two are in, obviously. I'll handpick the rest of the strike team." As they prepared for the most crucial mission of their lives, none of them could have imagined the challenges that lay ahead, or the deadly new threat already moving to crush their resistance once and for all. The rebel base thrummed with activity as Princess Fenris strode through its corridors, her purposeful gait drawing salutes and nods from passing resistance fighters. She entered the command center, where Commander Sullivan hunched over a holographic display, his weathered face illuminated by the flickering blue light. "Princess," Sullivan greeted, his voice gruff, "we've got a lead on a high-value target, someone who could turn the tide of this war." Fenris's eyes narrowed. "I'm listening." Sullivan manipulated the holo display, bringing up the image of a slender, ethereal-looking Barzan female. This is Valera, the Galactic Council's top psionic assassin. Our intel suggests she's aboard a Barzan command ship coordinating the invasion. Psionic abilities? Fenris asked, her brow furrowing. I've heard whispers, but... It's real, Sullivan confirmed, and dangerous. Valera can manipulate minds, turn our own people against us. We need to take her out before she can do more damage. Fenris nodded, her mind already formulating a plan. I'll lead a strike team. We'll infiltrate the ship, neutralize Valera, and extract any valuable intelligence we can find. It's a suicide mission, Sullivan warned. Then we'd better not fail, Fenris replied, her voice steel. Assemble the team. I want Major Reeves on point. Hours later, Fenris and her hand-picked squad crouched in the cargo hold of a captured Barzan supply shuttle. The princess felt the familiar pre-mission tension coiling in her gut as they approached the looming silhouette of the command ship. Remember, she whispered to her team, speed and silence are our allies. We get in, we find Valera, we get out. No heroics. The shuttle docked with a muffled clang. Fenris led the charge, her plasma saber humming to life as they burst from the cargo hold. The skeleton crew of Barzan troops barely had time to react before they were cut down in a hail of precision fire. Fenris tapped her comms. Hangar secure? Move out. They advanced through the ship's sterile corridors, dispatching isolated patrols with ruthless efficiency. But as they neared the bridge, an icy dread crept over Fenris. Something wasn't right. A squad of Barzan troopers rounded the corner, their movements oddly fluid and coordinated. Before Fenris could shout a warning, Major Reeves whirled, his plasma rifle leveled at her chest. Reeves, Fenris gasped, what are you? His eyes were vacant, pupils dilated. A chilling voice echoed through the corridor. Your mind is an open book, Princess Fenris. Valera materialized from the shadows, her lithe form wreathed in a shimmering psionic aura. Your pawns are mine now. Fenris barely managed to deflect Reeves's first shot, the superheated plasma sizzling past her ear. She dove for cover as her own team turned their weapons against her, their minds puppets to Valera's will. You're outnumbered and outmatched, Valera taunted. Surrender, and perhaps the Council will show mercy. Fenris gritted her teeth, her mind racing. She needed to break Valera's hold, and fast. Her gaze fell on a nearby power conduit, an idea forming. She burst from cover, plasma saber slicing through the air. Valera's puppets opened fire, but Fenris was already in motion. She vaulted over a console, her blade cleaving through the power conduit. Sparks erupted as raw energy coursed through the ship's systems. Valera screamed, her psionic link momentarily disrupted by the power surge. Fenris seized the opportunity, tackling the assassin to the ground. They grappled fiercely, Valera's psionic assaults battering against Fenris's iron will. You can't resist, Valera hissed, her eyes blazing with otherworldly power. Fenris headbutted the assassin, stunning her. In one fluid motion, she activated a neural disruptor, slapping it onto Valera's forehead. The psionic energy surrounding them dissipated like smoke. Reeves and the others shook their heads, disoriented but free from Valera's control. Fenris stood over the incapacitated assassin, her chest heaving. Secure her, she ordered, and prep for immediate evac. As they restrained Valera, the assassin's eyes locked onto Fenris. A cruel smile played across her lips. You may have won this battle, Princess, Valera whispered, but you have no idea of the power that sleeps within you. The Council knows, and they will stop at nothing to ensure it never awakens. Fenris felt a chill run down her spine, but she pushed the feeling aside. There would be time to ponder Valera's cryptic warning later. For now, they had a prisoner to extract and a war to win. As the rebel team made their escape, Fenris couldn't shake the feeling that this victory had opened the door to something far larger and far more dangerous than she could have ever imagined. Fenris jolted awake, her palms sweating from the vivid nightmares that had plagued her sleep. Sweat beaded on her brow as she tried to shake off the lingering images of cosmic horrors and galactic devastation. She padded silently through the rebel base, seeking out Commander Sullivan and Major Reeves. Finding them in the strategy room, she took a deep breath and spoke. We need to talk. There's more to this war than we realized. Sullivan's eyebrows furrowed as Fenris recounted her visions. She described the ancient psionic beings, their manipulation of the Galactic Council, and the true purpose of the Oblivion's hammer. A cosmic beacon? Reeves muttered, his face pale. To summon these entities? Fenris nodded grimly. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore. The entire galaxy is at stake. Sullivan paced, his mind working furiously. How can we possibly locate this superweapon? We don't even know where to start. Fenris hesitated, then said, I might have a way. My psionic abilities, they're growing stronger. If I can trace the quantum signature. Absolutely not, Sullivan cut her off. It's too dangerous. We can't risk. We don't have a choice, Fenris insisted. Time is running out. After hours of heated debate, Sullivan reluctantly agreed. They brought Valera from her cell, the captive psionic assassin's eyes gleaming with interest, as Fenris explained her plan. You're more powerful than you know, Princess, Valera purred. But are you prepared for what you might find? Fenris steeled herself as she sat cross-legged on the floor. Valera's slender fingers pressed against her temples, guiding her into a trance state. The world fell away as Fenris plunged into a sea of swirling quantum energies. She felt the pulse of the Oblivion's hammer, a discordant note in the cosmic symphony. Following its resonance, she traced the signal to its source. Fenris gasped as the location crystallized in her mind. Cheyenne Mountain, she breathed, her eyes snapping open. It's there, deep underground. Sullivan sprang into action, mobilizing an elite strike force. Fenris found herself gearing up alongside Major Reeves and a grizzled Special Forces operative introduced as Brock Harden Riker. Hope you're ready for some close-quarters combat, Princess, Riker growled as they boarded the stealth dropship. Using Valera's insider knowledge, they infiltrated the subterranean facility. Fenris led the charge, her plasma saber humming as they cut through waves of Barzan defenders. The team fought their way deeper into the complex, the air growing thick with ozone and the crackle of psionic energy. They burst into a cavernous chamber and froze. Before them loomed the Oblivion's hammer, a colossal particle accelerator crackling with malevolent power. But it was the rows of translucent pods lining the walls that made Fenris's blood run cold. Each pod contained a humanoid figure, their bodies wasted and eyes vacant. Psychics harvested from countless worlds to power this abomination. Fenris's gaze locked onto one particular pod, and her heart stopped. Tyra, she whispered, staring at the comatose form of her younger sister. As Fenris rushed to free Tyra, alarms blared. The facility's defenses roared to life, energy barriers sealing off their escape routes. The Oblivion's hammer thrummed ominously, preparing to fire its apocalyptic beacon. Fenris knew what she had to do. She turned to her team, her eyes blazing with psionic fire. Get Tyra and the others out. I'll handle this. Before they could protest, Fenris strode toward the pulsing heart of the Oblivion's hammer. She felt the cosmic forces gathering around her, whispering promises of unimaginable power. Fenris embraced the surge of psionic energy, channeling it through her very being. The air crackled as Fenris engaged in a titanic battle of wills against the Oblivion's hammer. Reality itself seemed to warp and bend as she grappled with the machine's vast energies. With a final, primal scream, Fenris redirected the quantum alignment, transforming the beacon into a massive psionic pulse. A blinding flash filled the chamber. When it faded, the Barzan troops lay crumpled on the ground, while the human fighters stood unharmed. The Oblivion's hammer sputtered and died, its threat neutralized. Fenris collapsed to her knees, her mind turning from the exertion. As her teammates rushed to her side, she felt something dark and vast stirring at the edges of her consciousness. The true scope of the cosmic conflict unfolded before her, dwarfing even this momentous victory. Tyra's arms encircled her, tears streaming down her sister's face. But even as Fenris returned the embrace, she knew the war for the galaxy's future had only just begun. Fenris staggered as the aftershocks of the psionic battle racked her body. The cavernous chamber, once thrumming with malevolent energy, now lay silent. Smoke curled from the ruined Oblivion's hammer, its apocalyptic purpose thwarted. "We need to move," Reeves urged, supporting Fenris as she swayed on her feet. The facility could still be crawling with Barzan forces. Fenris nodded weakly, her knees going weak from the cosmic visions that assailed her consciousness. As they made their way through the labyrinthine corridors, she clung to her sister Tyra, reunited at last. But Tyra's vacant stare and limp movements spoke volumes about the horrors she had endured. Back at the Resistance base, Commander Sullivan convened an emergency meeting. The mood was tense as he laid out their situation. "The Oblivion's hammer is neutralized, but we're far from out of the woods," Sullivan said, his weathered face grim. "Princess Fenris's actions have given us a fighting chance, but they've also painted a target on our backs." Fenris, still pale and shaken, spoke up. "There's more at stake than we realized. The Galactic Council. They're just puppets. There are beings out there, ancient and powerful, pulling the strings." A hush fell over the room as Fenris recounted her visions. The cosmic horror she described sent shivers through even the most hardened veterans. In the days that followed, Fenris threw herself into helping Tyra recover. The Resistance's top psionics worked tirelessly to piece together Tyra's shattered psyche. Progress was agonizingly slow, but Fenris refused to give up hope. It was during one of these healing sessions that the breakthrough came. As the telepaths probed Tyra's fractured memories, they stumbled upon something unexpected, a psychic imprint, alien and vast. "It's a link," one of the psionics explained, his voice filled with awe and fear. "Tyra's mind, it's connected to their network, the cosmic overlords." Fenris's heart raced as the implication sank in. "Can we use it to find them?" The lead telepath nodded slowly. "Possibly, but it would be incredibly dangerous. We'd need to perform a ritual, fusing your evolving abilities with Tyra's link. The risks—" "I'll do it," Fenris said without hesitation. Major Reeves protested vehemently, but Fenris stood firm. As preparations for the ritual began, she spent a quiet moment with her sister. "I'm sorry, Tyra," Fenris whispered, clasping her sister's unresponsive hand. "I couldn't protect you before, but I swear I'll make this right." The ritual chamber hummed with arcane energies as Fenris and Tyra were sealed into cybernetic pods. As the psychic array activated, Fenris felt her consciousness expand, merging with Tyra's in a kaleidoscope of fractured memories and cosmic vastness. They plunged into the cosmic ether, assailed by otherworldly horrors that defied description. Fenris's will became a shield, protecting Tyra's fragile psyche as they pushed deeper into the Overlord's domain. Suddenly, they found it, the coordinates, pulsing like a beacon in the void. But as Fenris reached out to grasp them, alarms blared in the physical world. The Overlords had detected their intrusion. Pain unlike anything Fenris had ever experienced tore through her mind. She felt Tyra's consciousness unraveling, disintegrating in the psychic maelstrom. With the last of her strength, Fenris pulled them back, forcing her eyes open in the real world. The ritual chamber was in chaos. Equipment sparked and smoked, and the medical team swarmed around the pods. Fenris stumbled out, her head spinning. "Tyra?" she gasped. "Where's Tyra?" The look on Sullivan's face told her everything. Fenris fell to her knees, a scream of anguish tearing from her throat. She had failed her sister again, this time fatally. But as the full weight of what had happened settled over her, Fenris realized the true horror of her situation. She could feel it. The link to the Overlord's citadel, now burned into her very soul. And with it, a chilling awareness that every thought, every human connection, now carried the risk of exposure. Fenris met Sullivan's concerned gaze, her heart breaking. She knew what she had to do, even as every fiber of her being rebelled against it. "I can't stay," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "As long as I'm here, none of you are safe." Sullivan started to argue, but Fenris cut him off. "The coordinates, I have them, but I'm compromised. If I stay, I'll doom us all." She stood, her purpose hardening even as tears threatened to fall. "I have to go, alone. It's the only way to keep the Resistance safe and strike at the heart of the Overlord's power. As Fenris turned to leave, the weight of her choice crushing her spirit, she knew the hardest part of her journey lay ahead. She would have to sever every emotional tie, every connection that made her human. Only then could she face the cosmic horrors that awaited her in the Overlord's realm. Fenris stood alone in her quarters, her fingers tracing the cold metal walls of the Resistance base. She closed her eyes, steeling herself for what she must do. The link to the Overlord's citadel pulsed within her mind, a constant reminder of the danger she posed to everyone around her. She made her way to the command center, where Sullivan and Reeves were huddled over a holographic map. They looked up as she entered, concern etched on their faces. "I've made my decision," Fenris said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "I'm leaving. Tonight." Sullivan's brow furrowed. "Fenris, we've been over this. We need you here. The Resistance will die if I stay," Fenris cut him off. "Every moment I remain puts you all at risk. The Overlords could discover our location through me at any time." Reeves stepped forward, his eyes pleading. "There has to be another way. We can find a solution together." Fenris shook her head. "There isn't time. I have the coordinates to their citadel. I'll confront them alone." Sullivan banged his hand on the table. "This is suicide, and you know it." "It's the only choice we have," Fenris replied, her dedication unwavering. As the argument raged on, Fenris felt the weight of her next actions settle over her. She retreated to her quarters, methodically erasing all personal items and connections to the Resistance. Each severed tie felt like a knife twisting in her gut. Later that night, she found Reeves waiting outside her door. His eyes were red-rimmed, his voice hoarse as he spoke. "Please, Fenris, don't do this. We can face this together." Fenris felt her heart breaking, but she knew what had to be done. She raised her hand, channeling her psionic energy. "I'm sorry, old friend," she whispered. Reeves' eyes went wide, then blank as Fenris's power washed over him. When it was done, he blinked in confusion, looking at her as if seeing a stranger. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice devoid of recognition. Fenris swallowed the lump in her throat. "No, thank you, Major." She made her way to the hangar, where a sleek Barzan scout ship awaited. As she prepared for launch, Sullivan's voice crackled over the comms. "Fenris, don't—" She cut the connection, sealing herself inside the craft. The engines hummed to life, and Fenris felt a momentary pang of regret as the Resistance base grew smaller in her viewport. The journey through hyperspace was a cacophony of psychic assaults. Spectral entities clawed at her mind, their unearthly shrieks threatening to drive her mad. The ship groaned under the strain of forces beyond its design parameters. As she neared her destination, reality itself seemed to twist and warp. A massive psionic field enveloped her craft, freezing it in place. Fenris's mind reeled as a colossal entity materialized before her. The Eldrith's psychic presence crashed over her like a tidal wave. Images and knowledge flooded her consciousness. Eons of cosmic manipulation, the true purpose of the Galactic Council, the horrifying fate that awaited all sapient species. Fenris screamed as the Eldrith began to consume her mind, probing her neural pathways for weaknesses. She felt herself unraveling, her very essence being absorbed into the vast alien consciousness. In that moment of utmost desperation, Fenris gathered every ounce of her psionic strength. With a primal roar, she seized control of the psychic conduit. The Eldrith's surprise gave her the opening she needed. Fenris purged the alien presence from her mind, the violent expulsion sending shockwaves through the nexus point. Alarms blared as the stasis field collapsed, and Fenris's damaged ship spiraled away from the crumbling citadel. But even as she plotted an escape course, Fenris knew the battle was not nearly finished. Her mind buzzed with new awareness, senses attuned to dimensions beyond human comprehension. The Eldrith influence lingered, a constant whisper at the edges of her consciousness. As the stars streaked by, Fenris set coordinates for a new destination. Her father's stronghold awaited, and with it, the corrupt heart of the Galactic Council. She clenched her fist, feeling the weight of untold worlds resting upon her shoulders. The cosmic chess game had entered its final phase, and Fenris now understood the true stakes. With each passing moment, the line between victory and damnation grew thinner. Her ship accelerated, carrying her towards a confrontation that would decide the fate of all sapient life in the universe. The battered scout ship lurched out of hyperspace, alarms blaring as it tumbled into the asteroid field surrounding Fenris's home system. Inside the cockpit, Fenris gripped the controls with white knuckles, her legs shaking from the cosmic horrors she'd witnessed. As she navigated through the debris field, a familiar voice crackled over the comms. "Unidentified vessel. This is Commander Sullivan. State your intent." "Sullivan, it's me," Fenris rasped, her throat raw from screaming. "I'm coming in hot." Moments later, her ship touched down in a hidden resistance hangar. As the airlock hissed open, Fenris stumbled out, nearly collapsing. Sullivan and Reeves rushed to her side, their faces a mixture of relief and concern. "What happened out there?" Reeves asked, steadying her. Fenris shook her head, struggling to articulate the vastness of what she'd experienced. "The Eldrith? They're beyond anything we imagined. And the Council, they're just puppets." Sullivan's eyes narrowed. "Tell us everything." In the command center, Fenris recounted her harrowing encounter. The room fell silent as she described the true nature of the Galactic Council's genocide, a twisted cultivation to prepare Earth for Eldrith assimilation. "But that's not the worst of it," Fenris continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "When I destroyed their citadel, I created a link. They're in my head now, always watching, always listening." Reeves stepped back, his hand instinctively moving to his sidearm. "You're compromised." "I know," Fenris said, her eyes filled with pain. "But I also know what we have to do. We need to strike at the heart of the Council's power, the Barzan throne world." Sullivan leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "That's suicide. We don't have the numbers or the firepower." "It's our only chance," Fenris insisted. "If we can take control of the Barzan war machine, we can turn it against the Eldrith. It's now or never." For a long moment, Sullivan studied her face. Then, with a sharp nod, he turned to his tactical display. "All right, let's make it happen." The next hours were a whirlwind of activity. Ships were prepped, troops mobilized, and plans hastily drawn up. Fenris found herself at the head of Omega Team, a strike force tasked with penetrating the Barzan capital's defenses. As they approached the planet, Fenris felt the weight of countless lives pressing down on her. The Resistance fleet emerged from hyperspace, immediately met with a hail of Barzan fire. Fenris's shuttle weaved through the chaos, laser blasts searing the air around them. They touched down hard in the outskirts of the capital, the team spilling out into a maelstrom of smoke and debris. Fenris raised her psi amplifier, sending a pulse that scattered the first wave of Barzan defenders. "Push forward," she shouted, leading the charge towards the towering spires of the command citadel. The battle raged through twisting streets and grand plazas. Fenris felt each loss keenly, Resistance fighters falling to Barzan weaponry, but inch by bloody inch, they advanced. At last, they breached the citadel's outer defenses. Fenris and her strike team fought their way down to the subterranean levels, where the true seat of power lay. As they approached the central chamber, a familiar presence brushed against Fenris's mind. The doors slid open, revealing Grand Vizier Malthus. Behind him loomed a massive holographic avatar, its form twisting and writhing in impossible geometries. The Eldrith had arrived. "Welcome home, Princess," Malthus sneered, his eyes gleaming with malevolent glee. "We've been waiting for you." Fenris raised her weapon, but Malthus merely laughed. "Oh, my dear, you have no idea what you truly are, do you?" As Malthus spoke, the horrible truth unfolded before Fenris. Her entire life, her exile, her struggles, even her resistance had all been orchestrated. She was never meant to be a savior. She was a vessel, created to birth a new generation of Eldrith into this reality. The revelation hit Fenris like a physical blow. She staggered, her knees going weak, as she felt something alien stirring within her very being. The Eldrith presence grew stronger, threatening to overwhelm her entirely. Outside the chamber, Sullivan's forces engaged in a desperate battle against the Imperial Guard. But even as they fought, Sullivan came to a grim realization. The true threat wasn't the Barzans or even the Council. It was Fenris herself. With heavy heart, Sullivan activated his comlink. All units, fall back to secondary positions. Prepare to execute Omega Protocol. In the command chamber, Fenris screamed as the Eldritch entity within her clawed its way towards ascendance. The fate of humanity, of the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. Balance trembled. A high-pitched whine filled the air, growing in intensity. Fenris stumbled, her vision blurring as reality itself seemed to warp around her. Through the haze, she saw Sullivan's grim face on a nearby monitor. "I'm sorry, Fenris," his voice crackled. "Omega Protocol engaged." The floor bucked beneath her feet. Malthus's eyes widened in shock as the Citadel shuddered. "What have you done?" he snarled. Before Fenris could respond, a blinding white light engulfed everything. Heat seared her skin, and she felt her body disintegrating, atom by atom. Yet somehow she remained conscious, suspended in a void between existence and oblivion. Fragments of herself scattered across dimensions. She glimpsed countless realities, some familiar, others utterly alien. In one, she saw herself as a tyrant, crushing worlds beneath her heel. In another, she dissolved into cosmic dust. Her consciousness spread thin across the universe. A familiar voice cut through the chaos. Such potential, wasted. Emperor Zorlax materialized before her, his eyes glowing with eldritch energy. "You could have been our vessel, our gateway to your realm. Instead, you've trapped us both in this limbo." Fenris tried to speak, but her words echoed across 1,000 mouths in 1,000 realities. She focused, pulling the scattered pieces of herself together. "No," she managed, her voice reverberating through space-time. "I choose my own path." She reached out, not with hands, but with her very essence, grasping the threads of possibility that surrounded her. Images flashed through her mind, the resistance fighters who had become her family, the world she had sworn to protect. With a surge of will, Fenris wove those threads together, anchoring herself to a single timeline. Reality snapped back into focus, and she found herself standing amidst the smoldering ruins of the Citadel. Ash rained from the sky as Fenris took a shaky breath. Her body felt strange, simultaneously more solid and more ephemeral than before. She flexed her fingers, watching as they briefly phased through nearby debris. "Fenris!" a hesitant voice called out. She turned to see Sullivan and Reeves emerging from a shelter, their faces a mix of awe and trepidation. As Fenris met their gazes, she saw not just her comrades, but echoes of their alternate selves across countless realities. The weight of infinite possibilities pressed down upon her. "What happened?" Reeves asked, his hand hovering near his weapon. "Are you... Fenris nodded slowly. "I am, but I'm also... more." She struggled to find words to explain the cosmic awareness that now filled her mind. The Eldritch, they're gone, at least from this reality, but the multiverse, it's fractured. Sullivan stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "What does that mean for us, for the Resistance?" Fenris looked out over the ruined cityscape, seeing not just the physical destruction, but the metaphysical fault lines that now crisscrossed reality. "It means our fight isn't over," she said, "but the nature of that fight has changed. We're no longer just battling the Council or the Barzans. We're fighting to preserve the very fabric of our universe." As if to emphasize her point, a nearby building flickered, briefly replaced by an impossible structure of non-Euclidean geometry before snapping back to normal. Sullivan and Reeves stumbled back, their eyes wide. Fenris stood tall, her form shimmering with barely contained cosmic energy. "We need to gather what's left of our forces. There are cracks in reality that need to be sealed, and I can't do it alone." She took a step forward, and for a moment after images of her other selves stretched out behind her. The tyrant, the cosmic dust, the godlike being of pure energy. But it was Fenris, the woman who had fought alongside the Resistance, who spoke. "The multiverse is counting on us," she said. "Are you with me?" Sullivan and Reeves exchanged glances, then nodded. As they began to formulate plans, Fenris felt the weight of infinite realities pressing down upon her. She knew that every choice, Every action from this point forward would ripple across the multiverse. The battle for a single planet had become a war for all of existence, and Fenris stood at its center, a living fulcrum upon which the fate of reality now balanced. Balanced. Fenris gasped, her consciousness snapping back into focus. The ruins of the command citadel materialized around her, ash and debris swirling in the air. Her body flickered, momentarily phasing through reality before solidifying again. Sullivan's voice cut through the haze. "Fenris, what's happening?" She turned to face her comrades, her eyes reflecting the cosmic vastness she had witnessed. "I've seen everything." Reeves stepped forward, his hand outstretched. As he touched Fenris's arm, his eyes widened in shock. "You're different." Fenris nodded, her form shimmering with scarcely controlled energy. "I am, and I've made a choice." She closed her eyes, focusing her newfound cosmic awareness. The air around them rippled as reality itself bent to her will. Sullivan and Reeves stumbled, disoriented by the sudden shift in perception. "Look," Fenris commanded, gesturing to the space before them. The air shimmered, revealing glimpses of alternate realities. In one, a biomechanical tyrant ruled over a subjugated galaxy. In another, a being of pure energy reshaped the very foundations of existence. "These are the paths I could have taken," Fenris explained, her voice tinged with both awe and sorrow. "But I choose this reality. Our reality." With a gesture, she dispelled the visions. The air crackled with psionic energy as Fenris exerted her will upon the fabric of space-time. Reality groaned and buckled, threatening to unravel completely. "What are you doing?" Sullivan shouted over the psychic maelstrom. Fenris gritted her teeth, sweat beading on her brow. "Stabilizing our timeline, severing the connections to other realities. It's the only way to protect our universe from the Eldrith influence." As she spoke, her form began to flicker more rapidly. The cosmic radiance that had surrounded her started to dim, like a star going supernova in reverse. Reeves' eyes widened in realization. "You're losing your powers." Fenris nodded, a single tear trailing down her cheek. "It's the price I must pay. To save our reality, I have to anchor myself fully to this plane of existence." With a final surge of will, Fenris unleashed a wave of psionic energy that rippled outward, sealing the cracks in reality. As the wave passed, the otherworldly distortions faded, leaving only the ruined citadel in the ash-filled sky. Fenris collapsed to her knees, her body now fully corporeal. The otherworldly glow had faded from her eyes, replaced by a look of profound exhaustion and bittersweet acceptance. Sullivan knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Are you all right?" Fenris nodded slowly. "I'm mortal again, or as close to it as I'll ever be." She looked up at her comrades, her gaze filled with quiet drive. "I've given up the power to reshape reality, but in doing so, I've preserved our free will and our future." Reeves helped her to her feet. "What now?" Fenris surveyed the devastation around them, her eyes fixing on the horizon. "Now, we rebuild, and we stay vigilant. The Eldrith may be gone from our reality, but the boundaries between dimensions will always need guarding." As they began to make their way through the ruins, Fenris felt the weight of her choice settling upon her. She had glimpsed infinity and turned away, choosing instead the finite but precious bonds of her mortal existence. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in her life, Fenris felt truly grounded. She had become the wardbringer, a sentinel standing watch over the fragile threads of reality. And though the cosmic vastness now eluded her grasp, she found strength in the connections she had forged and the world she had chosen to protect.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.